Many women experience a decline in their libido during perimenopause. There's all of these factors that impact our desire to be having sex. And if you have a partner that you're pissed off with, to be blunt, or the relationship's not going well, your partner's not looking after themselves either, also your own body image, because our bodies change so much during this period of time, it's not really going to miraculously increase. Sex is a multi-layered beast in the sense of what is it that drives someone to have sex at any given time.
Welcome to Your Second Act, the podcast that proves that life doesn't have to end at 40, 50, or even 60, because when it comes to living your best life, age is just a number. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. I hope for those that celebrated Mother's Day, you all had a fantastic and special day. I was fortunate to spend it with my gorgeous girls, which is particularly special this year as my youngest is about to embark on a 3-month overseas trip. I'm both excited for her and I'm also a little bit scared to let her go. But I suppose that's part of our role as mothers, to teach our kids to spread their wings and embrace life fully. So I'll be making sure to spend every last moment I can with her, probably not much to her delight, but too bad, because she's going to be really missed. So this week's episode is part 2 of my conversation with clinical psychologist Kirstin. I anticipated that last week's episode would spark a lot of discussion, as it was so enlightening for me. And menopause is a topic that women should discuss more openly. So thank you to everyone who commented on my community Facebook page. I love hearing your thoughts. And it really helps us all understand that this phase of life affects us all so differently. So let's keep the engagement going and don't hesitate to bring anything up. There's no judgment here. Your comments could really go on to help someone in need, especially someone who is probably too shy to ask the question. So, keep it going. And also be sure to join the Facebook page if you haven't as yet. And you can also watch the episode on my YouTube channel, which the links are both available in today's show notes. So in today's episode, Kirstin will be addressing all the questions that you've all sent in. So I think we should just dive in and let's learn more about menopause. So welcome to Your Second Act. The last episode, I have to say, I walked away and my mind was just buzzing with information, but it was really, really beneficial. And I know a lot of the listeners it came out last week, so they would have a lot of questions. And I did in that week get some questions sent to me. So that's why I thought I'd turn this episode into a Q&A, because I think a lot of us are still in the dark and some of us are embarrassed to ask these questions. But I wanted to start the conversation by saying, after speaking to you, I went to my GP and I said, I've been speaking to this amazing woman and she thinks that every woman needs to be on HRT because the benefits are so big compared to not taking them. And she said, absolutely. So I was so shocked. So I've now been taking it for a couple of weeks now. So I'm really excited to see the difference in myself and how I feel. So thank you so much for all that information, because I didn't know. I just thought you take that when you're going through menopausal or perimenopausal symptoms. And once you're done, then you're done. But obviously research shows the benefits are huge.
Definitely. It's not just about living a long life. It's about living a long life where we're as healthy and capable as we can be. I mean, aging is inevitable for sure. But, if we can support ourselves to be the healthiest version of ourselves, then we're going to be able to make the most of our senior years for as long as possible. And that's what it's really about, I reckon. So I'm stoked. I'm stoked to hear that. I'll be interested to get feedback from you, how you're feeling.
Yeah, definitely. And you did send me a little research piece, and I was really surprised to see that it even helps with dementia.
Yeah, I mean, that's the really kind of groundbreaking, research that's coming out. And there's an amazing woman, Dr. Lisa Mosconi. She's a neuroscientist and, just I mean, she's many things. Like she's got a lot of letters after her name. And she is an expert on dementia, Alzheimer's, and women, like in women, and has just published a book, The Menopause Brain. And it is written for the everyday woman. It's not, just for professionals in the space. And it's just full of really great information and really important information. So, yeah, it's exciting research. It's exciting times in this space.
Well, that's really, for me, that's so promising because the rate of dementia, Alzheimer's is growing considerably. And it's really scary because you think, well, that could be me one day.
And it's higher, far higher in women.
Of course it would be. Of course.
We're one of the biggest challenges throughout our lives. We're the toughest.
We are. Okay, well, let's get into the questions.
Yep, go for it.
Can I expect, this one actually came up a few times, obviously worded differently. Can I expect my libido to return after menopause? A lot of women say they have no desire to have sex. They'd rather never have it again. And it's sad, isn't it? But yeah, what's your take on that?
Okay, so tricky. I'll try and kind of be a little, not too long, but I guess the first thing is, were they women who enjoyed sex before they hit perimenopause? Because, it's unlikely that if it wasn't an important part of your life and it was something you could take or leave before perimenopause, it's not really going to miraculously, increase. Your interest isn't going to increase on the other side of it. So we need to take that into account. We also need to take into account, who you're having sex with.
Yeah.
If you have a partner that you're pissed off with, to be blunt, or the relationship's not going well, or perhaps, and this does happen, your partner's not looking after themselves either. And so from a physical perspective, perhaps you're struggling with finding them attractive. Then there's also your own body image, because our bodies change so much during this period of time, that there's all of these factors that impact our desire to be having sex in the first place, let alone when the ante's upped and, we are losing or many women experience a decline in their libido during perimenopause. So yes, it can come back. And I would say it can come back when you were someone who it was important for before and you enjoyed it before, and you're feeling good about your own body, your partner in your relationship, it's something that's important to them as well. And it's something that, your relationship's healthy and you actually want to be intimate with this person. So those are kinds of the factors that I think are really important to think about. Then there's also just some kind of basics, in the sense that one of the common symptoms of perimenopause that continues through menopause and postmenopause is the vaginal dryness. Now, if it hurts to have sex, you kind of stop wanting to have sex. And vaginal estrogen is really, really effective in treating that particular kind of condition. And so it's certainly one of the hormone treatments. It's localized. You put it in your vagina and around your vulva. It's one of those treatments that, you can continue forever. Now, you were just talking before, we kind of jumped on the show that initially there was the thought that you would only be on hormone treatment, if at all, but only on it while you're perimenopausal and then you come off. Now we're kind of recognizing that it's helpful to stay on for longer, and some people are saying forever. That's new information, but it's not too new, certainly to the medical community, that the vaginal estrogen is something that you can stay on forever. That's been around. That knowledge has been around for a long time. And, it's really important. Your vaginal health is really important. It impacts your bladder. Your bladder impacts your vagina. There's part of your vulva that's actually bladder tissue as well. So sometimes it's about vaginal estrogen. Sometimes it's about seeing a pelvic floor physiotherapist, because there's a whole bunch of things that can impact the physical experience of sex, which, of course, if it's not pleasant, you're not going to want it. But I think there is also, I mean, for some women, they get an increase in their libido.
I've heard this.
Some women during pregnancy lose their libido, and some women are complete hornbags
Yeah.
more than they've ever been before. And it can be a little bit the same, because I also think, apart from the fact that the desire might be there, sometimes for some women moving through these perimenopausal, menopausal years, they actually gain a lot of confidence and they stop getting so hung up on how their body looks. They're far more accepting that they're aging, and this is what a body looks like at, 45, 50, 60, 70 or whatever. So sometimes that's very freeing. Sometimes the idea that you can't have more babies is very freeing. So for some women, the libido increases even more than what it was before you were perimenopausal. But I guess what we need to think about is libido, which is kind of that biological horniness, that very primitive kind of feeling like I want to have sex, I want to be engaged in kind of some sexual behavior. And then we kind of can talk about more the emotional and psychological drive to have sex, which could be because it's fun, it feels good, I feel close to my partner. So there's these kind of sex is a multi-layered, like, kind of beast, in the sense of what is it that drives someone to have sex at any given time or engage in sexual behavior at any given time. And it can be some of those or all of those. And if none of those are present, that's when it's tricky. There's also some really good information out there. And maybe I can send some of the links to you to add to the show notes, in terms of talking about the difference between spontaneous desire and responsive desire. And spontaneous desire is the desire that, you're just kind of walking around the world and for whatever reason, all of a sudden you're feeling like having sex. And for women, it often, if that's going to happen, it's around ovulation. It gives us the drive to procreate. It's not just confined to ovulation either, though, but, it's a particularly high desire. And so that's, as I said, it's that real kind of physical drive, and it just happens. What tends to happen during this stage of life is we do find a general decrease in our spontaneous desire. But what doesn't necessarily decrease is our responsive desire. And that's the desire of, I'm doing loads of washing, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, and sex is the furthest thing from on my mind. But my partner comes up, says something nice, gives me a bit of a kiss, a bit of a cuddle, and I start to kind of enjoy the affection and the intimacy and things. And that can actually then lead to what they, start as a flicker. And then if you continue, become a flame. And then you can actually be feeling very much desiring of this experience, whether it's on your own or with your partner. And so that is really important for women to kind of keep in mind. Now, if I can just really, really, really stress, because there have been conversations about responsive desire before, which have been twisted into having what I call mercy sex. So, the flicker might happen, your partner's dead keen, and you just think, oh, well, I'll go ahead with it. Even if that doesn't turn into a genuine desire to be engaging in sexual behavior. I am in no way advocating for that at all.
Of course.
But what I am saying is we can't just rely on wandering around the world and all of a sudden having this spontaneous desire to have sex. What we can do is, if all those other ducks are lined up, we can kind of take a step back and think, okay, can I be open to sex? Bit of a pun there, but and can we start something and see where it goes? Now, the only way that really works kind of from a healthy, psychologically healthy perspective is if you have absolute permission, I use that loosely, that you give it to yourself and that your partner accepts that if that doesn't grow, if that desire doesn't kick in and doesn't grow, you can say that's enough. That's, that's met my need, but I don't want to go any further. But a lot of women find at times that starting the process builds and they do start to get that responsive desire happening. And so that is something to keep in mind through perimenopause and postmenopause.
Yeah. It's so unfortunate, isn't it? And I hear this time and time again, whereas I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like a man's sex drive never really diminishes that much, does it? And it can cause problems in a relationship. But yeah, I think it's having that understanding and opening up and really discussing how you feel about it as well. And like you said, not having mercy sex, because who wants to have sex like that? Nobody.
I think as well we need to expand what sex means, It can include such a wide range of behaviours. And I guess as well, it's really, I remember hearing the phrase, are you having the sex that you would actually want to have? And, to be really blunt, if you've got a partner who's perhaps not that interested in your needs,
Yes.
it's not very, there's not going to be a lot of drive to engage in, a sexually intimate moment with them if there's this long history of them getting their rocks off and you kind of being left high and dry and feeling, feeling as though it hasn't been particularly enjoyable for you. And I'm also not kind of just talking about orgasm here. I just mean, just a pleasant, lovely experience. So, in order for anyone to have a libido, they've got to know what sex they want to have. What do you enjoy? What do you want to feel? Where, how, who does what, blah, 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 and then it's about, well, if I want to maximize my sex life, for example, then that's what our sex needs to be looking like, is it has to be sex that I want to be having. And I think that's really important for all of us, but, particularly women to be thinking about in terms of their libido and whether it returns.
Okay. No, that was very interesting. Another question I got, which I thought was really interesting. What are the frequently asked questions by your clients that you get from women that we might not be aware of?
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely the first one you asked me is a very frequently asked question. Or, will I get my libido back, as you asked? Related to that, I guess, is the question around how can I get my libido back? What can I do about that? So that's the other question, because I definitely get women sitting in front of me who have enjoyed a sex life, whatever that means for them, and are missing that. It's a part of their life that was important, and they really miss. They miss wanting sex, let alone having it. And so that's a common question as well. Some people can come out with it in the first session, like they're very clear. That's what they're coming to see me for.
Well, that's good. They can open up.
Yeah. Well, we hear everything in the therapy room. Trust me, there's nothing that can shock me. And then others might take a little while and ask, we're focused on other things, and then they feel more comfortable to be able to ask what feels quite embarrassing for them, shall we say. But, the key phrases I hear are, am I going mad? And that mad could be because they're worried about dementia because of the memory issues, going into rooms, forgetting what they were going in there for. The brain's just not moving as quickly. They can't retain information. They're not able to find words, that they know as they're talking.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Am I going mad as in that dementia path, or am I going mad as in crazy because my mood's up and down, I'm teary, and then I'm kind of cranky and I'm biting people's head off, and that those are very, very, very common questions that I get. Sometimes I feel like my therapy room is a bit of a confessional. And by that, I mean, I get women kind of whispering to me very guiltily, I just want to run away. Like, I want to do my eat, pray, love. Like, don't we all? But, and I think that's, don't we all is almost like a genuine response, because it's a stage of our life where we do want to start kind of bringing our energy and our time and having more energy and time for ourselves and giving out less to others. And of course, that flies in the face. If we're mums or we're caring for elderly parents or siblings or friends, women are generally carers, and we're responsible for caring. So it kicks in that carer's guilt, that mother's guilt, that carer's guilt of, I've got these responsibilities I want to meet, and I want to meet them because I love these people. But at the same time, if I could just run away, I would really, really love to. And I think one of the things that I think is really, I've learned as being so helpful for me to know about, and I've certainly learned that other women have told me the same, is and I think I might have mentioned it last time we chatted, but that estrogen is the hormone of servitude and accommodation. And so, it's a biological hormone that we're given in our fertile years so that we prioritize the caring and accommodating of other people's needs. That's how the species survive. What happens is of that declines. And so it kind of makes sense that as our estrogen, which is the hormone of servitude and accommodation, as that declines, we're less inclined to want to serve others and accommodate others.
Well, see, that makes sense.
It makes so much sense. And it's just completely, it's not known. And yet for me, it was somewhat freeing. Like I don't get me wrong, there's still moments of mother guilt. I don't know whether that entirely ever goes away, but it certainly reduced the angst I had about this desire to be, doing my thing and wanting to my time and my space and stuff. It reduced that guilt just a little bit because it was like, oh, okay, there's a really clear biological reason for this, for how I'm feeling and things. And so, as I said, I found that really helpful for me. And I have also had many women who I've spoken to and I've shared that. It's been like, oh God, that actually explains a lot.
Yeah.
And it helps me feel not so bad and gives me more permission to honor that as well, to honor that transition of how I'm feeling.
I think also, and there's another question that came through, it's the flip side. It's your partner, it's your kids or your family or the people that you live with.
Mm-hmm.
They also have to adjust to your change. And I think as much as we can get really angry, and I get so pissed off, but then I sometimes I stop and think, well, they're going through it as well. They're reacting to me reacting. So how can we best educate them? Because, like it was a long time ago, no one said anything about it. The woman's gone crazy. Let's just leave her and then she'll come back. But, we do talk about it. It is open. And I talk about it with my girls and my husband. And sometimes they go, yeah, you're going a bit crazy. But, yeah. So how can we best educate them?
A funny story is that I started a TikTok account, which has just died because I just can't keep up with everything.
Oh, I can't be bothered with that.
One of my TikTok posts or whatever they're called was vaginal dryness. And some of my kids' friends saw it. So, but I am that kind of mum. I'm known to be the mum who talks about things that other mothers don't. And I'm really okay with that. But I guess, again, there's no magic solution to talking about it other than to talking about it. I think it's really important for, our family members, and this is where it starts. So, if our family members understand, oh, I'm perimenopausal or whatever, and what does that mean? And you share what that means, usually in short spurts, because kids don't really want to have these long-winded conversations and stuff. Or if they're in the car and they can't escape, that is a good one.
That's the best time.
That's the best time. And I think, in those circumstances, it's better to be talking about this stuff when you haven't just bitten their head off. Because if you've just bitten their head off, they're probably not very receptive to what you might have to say. So it's just about mentioning what perimenopause is, what it's meaning for you. It's acknowledging that you sometimes behave in a way that you wish you didn't, and you're doing your very best to kind of manage that. But it is really, really tricky because, this is real life. And then when you bite your head off, whether it's because you're perimenopausal and you're irritable and grumpy, or whether it's when you're 35 and you've just had a really crap day at work and everything seems to be going, haywire, and you come home and you're grumpy, apology is really important, regardless, acknowledging that, yeah, I'm really sorry I said that. I've had a really hard day, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to try and, not do that again. Well, I appreciate that that can happen a lot in perimenopause, but it also kind of happens a lot in life because we're human. We're really human, and lots of things can make us narky and bite people's head off or be unavailable. I don't have the headspace. Just leave me alone for now, for a while. But I think in this circumstance, talking about it helps provide really important information that it's not about them. It's something that's going on for you, in you. You can't change it. It goes on for all people who are born with ovaries. And they love you and they will love probably other people, whether it's, siblings, partners, whatever. And they will work with people who are going through this. And just like any tricky time, it's very lovely as a human to have compassion and try and understand that. So I think those conversations are really important. I know, do you remember Alison Bray? She was the
Yeah, she wrote a
model
book
in our
on it.
day. Yeah, Alison Bray Dado. She's written her book, and I think apart from the fact that her husband, wrote a chapter of it about, his experience as a partner, she also kind of really talks a lot about how it impacted her family. And, she talks about sitting around the dinner table in just her bra and everyone else was in jumpers. I think she's just so hot, and how they would go out for tea and she would just be like, I really have to stay home. I just want my own time. And so there were things, and that she was irritable. They were kind of the key things that I can remember. And so it's a really lovely book to read because you can see yourself in a lot of what she says, and it's just really normalizing. But yes, talk with your family, and it just as simple as, I'm sorry I bit your head off the other day. I haven't mentioned this to you, but I'm perimenopausal. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
Blah.
No, I
And
think
over
definitely.
time, you build the knowledge base. Over many different kind of conversations, you start explaining what it actually means. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so important, just like any relationship, communication. So, yeah,
For sure.
weight gain. That's another one. And and we've all experienced it, but it's like everyone talks about, the stomach area.
Yep.
Personally, it's stomach, it's my breasts. And you see this in older women, they have massive boobs. What is that? Okay, we put on weight as we get older, but it seems to be, yes, women having like abnormally large breasts. Why is that?
That
Or
I
they just
can't
eat too
explain.
much?
Yeah. No. I mean, it's just, I'm sure there's a really biological explanation for it. I guess as someone who doesn't have really large breasts, but boobs that have grown,
Yeah.
but not necessarily obvious to people because I'm still wouldn't say I've got big boobs. It varies for all of us. I mean, my sister's entirely different. She has always had big boobs and they're even bigger now. But I think there is a natural kind of increase in bust size. I think most women would say that. Because I'm still perimenopausal as well, I can go up a cup size and I don't know what time of my cycle I'm at because I don't get a period, but I would say it's around that kind of, reduction in, would it be, I don't know actually when it would be. I'm getting myself confused a bit now, but yeah, I can go up a cup size, I can go down a cup size at different parts of my cycle. I was like that when I did have a cycle that was far more regular before I was perimenopausal. And, it now happens again, but it's just all over the place, of course. So I think that's pretty common. With the weight gain, yeah, again, it is really common. And that's because of a whole bunch of different factors. So estrogen and cortisol, so the stress hormone, have this kind of relationship where one is high, the other is low, and vice versa. And that's generally whether we're perimenopausal or not. So when our estrogen is high, it helps keep our cortisol lower. So life produces cortisol, just life, particularly stressful life, but life in general. And all estrogen's our buffer for it. Now, as our estrogen declines, we've got less of a buffer for our cortisol. And we'll also then, so that's just, again, if you keep everything normal in your life and it's just your estrogen going down, your cortisol will still go up because that's the relationship that it has. People can't, well, if they're watching this on YouTube, they'll see me kind of moving my hands and things. But then you add on stresses in your life and your cortisol, of course, you're releasing more cortisol and it's higher. And we do not have the buffer of the estrogen that we used to have. And that is one of the reasons for the weight gain, is that essentially cortisol, high levels of cortisol is associated with weight gain anyway, but it kind of is a bit like can get out of control during this period of time, and it's because of the decline in our estrogen. That's my understanding. I think that's the current understanding. And the weight distribution, like where it sits, yes, I know that personally as well. Like I've got weight on a part of my body, which is my stomach, that I never carried weight on. I'm the typical pear shape. And it's like, where has this come from? And it's quite disheartening. And I think, there's lots of messaging around, generally for women, that smaller is better and we're supposed to look a certain way. And I think there's also a lot of advice, which I follow because I love health information for perimenopausal women. So I learn a lot about it. And certainly, the idea is for us to be able to keep our visceral fat. So that's the fat around our organs, which is not necessarily all visible. It's on the inside. How important it is for all those other kind of health issues to keep that kind of as low as we possibly can. And how do you do that? Well, you reduce your stress. The other factor is you try and prioritize sleep, but sleep is often one of the things that's most affected by perimenopause. And I definitely struggle with sleep, and I am on MHG and still struggle. Eat well, move our bodies, and certainly that kind of strength training is a really, really important factor as well. So all of that is really important. And I would say that as much as I focus on those things for the purpose of feeling as healthy and as strong as I can. And also then to set me up for my older age and my senior years as best as I can. I have a mum who's, she has osteoarthritis, she has bursitis, she's had shoulder reconstruct, all sorts of things. She nursed throughout her career. In those days, you lifted your patients all the time, and it's really had an impact on her joints and stuff. And I would rather not have an old age with those kinds of issues if I can. So that's what I try and do. But there is absolutely some days that I look in the mirror and I'm like, this is ridiculous. All these things that I'm doing to look after myself, they're not showing in my body. My body doesn't look like I want it to look. And so I also want women to perhaps, I guess, recognize that rather than pursuing something that's impossible, that we work at and we try and practice having a different focus, that we do these things to be as healthy as we can be for as long as we can be. And in an ideal world, we, over time, shift society's kind of the pressure that we have and the expectation that we have to look a certain way. We live in a society that values youth and beauty. And so when we reach these ages where we're losing our youth and we're losing our beauty, and part of that is how our body is changing, it is really difficult to feel like a valuable, worthwhile person walking around the world when all these messages say, well, you don't fit what is valuable in women. We have to be the ones that change that, though. We have to be the ones that say, this is what a middle-aged body looks like. And when we say that, recognize the diversity of that middle-aged body. And yes, some of them are amazing. You know, we've got athletes that are middle-aged and they do look amazing. And then we've got the other end of the spectrum where people are healthy at any size, you know, and then people who are, you know, I guess are really struggling with health issues given their weight and stuff and everything in between. There needs to just be far more of a focus on health as much as we can.
I think our generation is definitely changing the mindset, though, to what a woman looks like in midlife. And which I think is great. You know, whenever you get on social media, you see all these women, different body types, and they're just embracing it. They're owning it. And I think, wow, that is so good. And I'm sure all those women have shit days because that's life. But I like it. It's not, we're talking about it. The conversations are happening and it's good because like you said, sometimes you look in the mirror and you think, oh, I don't like what's looking back at me. But
yeah.
You know, and my trainer who is, gosh, he's so young, he's like 35. He said, you know, a big person can still be a healthy person. He said that it's a stupid mindset. You think someone who's really thin is healthy. He said, you know how many people I train that are unhealthy and they're thin? And I thought, oh, okay, that is interesting. So you can still be big, but you can still be fit and healthy.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Yes.
And I think the phrase I've heard is strong, not skinny.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good thing for us to aim for because strong actually is very preventative of frailty and fractures and falls in our later life. It's not based on, you know, kind of a vanity or beauty thing. It's actually based on this is helpful for our health moving into our older age. Yes, I follow a lot of trainers so their bodies look amazing and stuff. I also follow trainers who are in the midlife who don't look, I mean, I think they look great, but wouldn't fit that kind of, you know, particular physique. And I also follow women. I love, you know, fashion and things. And so I follow women of all different sizes. And I have purposefully curated my Instagram feed as an example so that I'm getting as many good, healthy messages subtly, you know, subliminally, as well as directly from my social media feed. And that's been really, really important to me. And if I see somehow an account and it starts to take me into that space where I'm feeling crap about myself, I don't follow it anymore.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you said that because a while ago I was scrolling through and there was so many certain accounts that triggered me and I thought, no, I'm not going to follow that person. It's not that I have anything against that person, but it triggers me. So this is meant to be something of entertainment. So yeah. And it's so easy just unfollow because you're not relating to that person. And that's the problem. And I worry about that with the younger generation because like us, we grew up looking at the Dolly magazine and the skinny teenage girls or early 20s and it just wasn't realistic. And even though I know it's changed a lot, but I'm so glad that you said that because that's what I do. I tailor it to what makes me feel good and I relate to these women. And if I don't follow. Or if they start to post things that trigger me, then, you know, what's the point?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The last question is, will I age quicker if I don't take HRT compared to women that do?
And again, there's a part of me that's kind of reluctant to answer because I think there's a whole bunch of science that I don't feel qualified to speak to. But what I guess I will say is when people say, will I age quicker, what do they mean by aging? You know, HRT is not going to stop us from getting older. As far as I'm aware, we could rub it all over our faces and it's not going to stop us from getting wrinkles.
And yeah.
And, you know, losing elasticity in our skin and things. So if you're talking about aging as in how you look, I would argue that there's a point, unless you're going to, and if you want a Botox, if you want a surgery and all the rest, that is absolutely your decision. I have no business having a comment on yes or no, but those would be those are the things that you would need to do. At some point, we're all going to get to the point where you cannot hide that you are older, right? And so the only way to stop that would be taking those kinds of measures. But if we're talking about aging from a perspective of, I guess, things that can age us are the things like our health issues. So if you've got a crappy diet, if you don't move your body, you're increasing your chances of things like cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes. If you're not strong, your bones are probably not strong, and therefore you're at increased risk of osteoporosis. And so a lot of the a lot of the things that I read when I'm looking into perhaps more the medical research around it, which I don't feel qualified to kind of talk from a place of expertise, but what I'm getting from it is that there's certain things that we can ignore and either not do or, kind of do very badly for our body that will have us unhealthy quicker, and unhealthy can therefore be linked with aging. But you can also be unhealthy and very young. As we said, your trainer was saying, there can be a really skinny person and they're actually not healthy. They could also be 20 years of age, 20, skinny and really unhealthy. So it's not a clear-cut kind of equation. I think the bottom line is, how can we age with as much health as possible? And these are the things that we can actually do. We can look after the food we put into our body more often than not. It's not about being perfect, whatever that might mean. We can move our bodies in a way we enjoy. We can be connected. We also know that loneliness is a significant factor as people age, and it actually has a higher risk of death because you're extremely lonely and depressed than some other kind of activities. Like, it really affects our well-being and our health. And I think so those are part of it as well. And then I'm also thinking of the cliche of, as you get older, you get more rigid in your thinking, like you get rigid and dogmatic and, in my day and that kind of stuff. And so I think to have a youthful attitude is really important as well. And a youthful attitude, I would like to think, includes an interest in learning and knowing in areas that are of interest to you, in staying engaged in the world, being curious about how other people live and what's going on for them, and learning stuff if it's completely foreign to you. So I think those are far more the important factors in terms of, it's not really combating age, and I'm not talking about hormone treatment here, but it's how to stay as youthful as we possibly can as we age, both attitudinally and physically. And yes, when we talked before about your doctor and going on MHT and stuff like that, MHT, the research is telling us that it does reduce our risk of some of those kinds of significant health issues that are often associated with aging. Because we know that women's cardiovascular risk increases once we're midlife and beyond. We know that osteoporosis risk increases, Alzheimer's, dementia. We know this. So these are the things that are associated with age quite a lot, not exclusively, but a lot. And things like MHT can help reduce our risk. Does it prevent it? No, you might draw the short straw. You also can't outrun a really hard lifestyle. You can't outrun heaps of alcohol, drugs, never moving your body, eating crap food the whole time, smoking. But yeah, so it's a bigger picture with many kind of moving parts in it.
Yeah. Wow. It's been fascinating. I have learnt so much on this subject by speaking to you. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really shocked because I thought I knew a lot about it, but actually I didn't. I think I just knew the surface stuff. So Thank you, because now I am taking HRT and I'm really looking forward to seeing the benefits. But more so, it's just the health benefits of preventative measures, isn't it? And yeah, I think well, for me, that's really important.
It is, and I think it's becoming increasingly important. Like we are actually starting to think about, how do I want to be as an elderly person? How can I be the healthiest version? Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I'm all for that. Well, I like to end all my episodes with the same question. What's something you have now in your second act that you never thought you'd have in your first?
This might sound really contradictory, because the word that comes to mind for me is patience. Now, I need to explain that, because on the one hand, I'm pretty quick to complain to Optus if they're annoying me, or, I'm.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I stand up for myself a heck of a lot more, and I speak my mind a heck of a lot more, which people who've known me for a while might seem to think I'm less patient as a result of that. But when I talk about patience, what I'm actually talking about is I have a lot more faith in life unfolding in the way that's right for me. So as someone who is and has always been a business owner, entrepreneur, a younger version of Kirstin would always make shit happen, and she would force things to happen. Like there was a real striving and a force. I still love business, entrepreneurship. I'm building a new business in the menopause space and stuff, but I'm more able to, I guess, see what happens, follow the breadcrumbs that are laid out in front of me. And if the breadcrumbs that are laid out in front of me don't fit the idea that I thought they should, I can let go of what I thought it should be and go with what it is. So I feel like a patience and a faith and a trust in the universe, and also that it will serve me in the way it needs to. So that for me would be the change. Yeah.
Well, it makes complete sense. Absolutely. I love it. That's why I love asking this question, because everyone's got such different answers. And yeah, when you really stop to think about it, it's amazing what you can come up with. So yeah, absolutely patience. I mean, I also think when I was younger and with young kids, there was no patience at all. I had none. But it's true, as you get older, certain things you have more patience for. For me, other things I don't tolerate anymore.
Yes.
But,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed 2 of our episodes. Super interesting, really informative, and I wish you all the best with your new business as well. And
thank you.
Yeah, I'll put all your links in the show notes, and let's keep in touch.
That would be great. Oh, definitely. I love your episodes. Love them.
Thank you. All the best.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Your Second Act. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could rate and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to me.